everybody? It's me, old buddy Ben, with that #show.com. As always, my existence on the interwebs is brought to you today by Neft Vodka, reminding you to please drink responsibly, as well as Toink.com. Get all up on your internet browser and type in Toynk.com. That's Toink.com for all sorts of great, amazing, awesome stuff. I recently had the privilege and honor of sitting down with horror movie icons Barbara Crampton, Bonnie Aarons, and Larry Fessenden to talk about their new flick, Jacob's Wife. Jacob's Wife is directed by Travis Stevens, a relative newcomer to the director's chair, who also joined us for the interview. And another special guest who joined us was my mustache. Take a look. Okay, so first question. You guys shot this in Mississippi, is that correct?
Yeah.
And how long ago did you film this? Was this pre-pandemic or was this like coming into 2020? When did you guys do this?
Go ahead, Travis.
No way, Barbara, take it away.
No, oh my God. We did it in February of last year, right before the lockdown. In fact, there was a scheduling issue that I had, and I thought I was going to be filming something. And so we said, oh, we've got to do this in February. And we were racing at Christmas time last year to be in pre-production and get this all organized. And really, it was a godsend. I never did the other movie. And we were able to do this movie in February and finish it right like 8 days before the lockdown. We all flew home, and a few days later, we were all at home on Zooms, as we still are now. So we were lucky we got it in under the wire.
Larry, of course, you've done a ton of this kind of stuff. I'm just curious, to play the role of Jacob in this film, you are a minister. As research for the role, did you attend a lot of church services?
No, but I am a pious man.
Yeah, I suppose so.
I did read the good book, and my shock at the stuff they say in the Bible was renewed. It's pretty raunchy stuff, and it was a fun entree in, and of course the passage about the marriage, which was very carefully selected and appropriate for our movie, was really quite startling. And so it was fun to do that kind of research. And I always say that I'm interested in morality and how to be a leader. So I sort of found my way into the character through that. You know, he has a flock of people he feels responsible for, and therefore he feels rather pompous. It was a fun character to try to relate to. It wasn't that hard for me.
Bonnie, you have extensive experience in horror and playing spooky creatures, in addition to a very wonderful career. What did you use from your experience to bring to the character of the Master? And what do you hope that audiences see or they get out of this character?
Well, I love vampires and I always wanted to play one. There's a whole world more of vampires to play out there. This is so uplifting. The film is just incredibly empowering and uplifting. And I think that everyone will walk away with something. Mm-hmm. Not only a shrill, but we'll walk away after seeing the film with some other higher consciousness or knowing or believing in themselves, or looking at how things are treated. It opens up a whole new door of thought. Very thought-provoking.
Bonnie, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but didn't you say James Wan is a very good filmmaker, but you, Travis Stevens, you really...
Oh, yes!
You
are the best! You are... Travis is hands down the best, and wow, he knows how to deal. He knows how to deal with his customer. I'll tell you that.
Stop! But too much.
No, it's not. You're the master. You're the master.
Yeah. Speaking of Travis, well, actually, I did want to just add on to it. It is great, like especially that scene towards the end when you're talking about essentially. And the credit here goes to both your performance, of course, Bonnie, and what you're talking about here, as well as Travis, because you were one of the writers on this, right, Travis? Yeah. And it is about challenging kind of the status quo, or challenging what you've been brought up to believe, and does that serve you as a human being in a sense? And it's funny because it's coming from a vampire, saying, does this life serve you as a human? Travis, you've produced a lot. This is only, I think this is only your 4th directing credit. Am I correct in saying that?
Second, there is another Travis Stevens out there making movies.
Oh my gosh.
I'm not getting residuals or anything from those other 2. So,
well, you should be. As far as Jacob's Wife goes, it's a lot of fun. It's a great horror, and I think horror fans are going to eat it up with a spoon. What do you want audiences to get out of this? Or what do you want them to know going into it to kind of whet their appetite to get them ready to watch Jacob's Wife?
Jacob's Wife is a love letter to Barbara Crampton and Larry Fessenden and the vampire subgenre. And I say that with all of my heart. We worked very, very hard to honor both their work as performers and the vampire films that we've loved our entire lives. And I think fans of vampire subgenre are going to see little winks and nods and tributes to some of their favorite films, and hopefully see some new stuff they haven't seen in this genre before. And basically, after a year of everybody carrying the burden of a lockdown, we hope they have fun with a big, wild, crazy horror movie that really goes for it.
It definitely does go for it. There's just some great blood in this movie. There's some fun lines. I wouldn't call this a horror comedy, but there are some really funny lines in this that I just laughed out loud at. It's like a good straight up horror, and then but over the top, just like you're saying. And Barbara, you roll through this thing like the character arc from beginning to end. You obviously the performances are awesome all around, but you are the engine driving this in a sense. How do you've been in so much horror, how do you keep it so fresh, and how do you like jump on and just take the reins as Anne and never look back in this film? And you're fun, you're funny, you're sexy, you're terrifying in some senses. How do you keep it so fresh? How do you just keep doing this?
I don't know. I love the horror genre more than anything. I realized it's my home, and I think there's something about horror that is in our everyday lives all the time. That's how I keep it fresh. I have a psychologist friend who said we make more decisions based on fear than we do on love. So everything in our lives is about fear and how we relate to it, and our response to it, and how we're going to overcome it or not. And so I think every day, if you're just showing up and living and confronting what's before you, that's fresh enough. And it was just, there's so much in this movie. I think there's so much richness with all the different characters and what they have to say and what they do, that just showing up and responding to that in an authentic way was just, what my assignment was, and which I hope I did.
Bonnie and Travis, let's talk about the look of the master. Obviously, there is some classic horror inspiration in here. Where did the development of the look come from? And Bonnie, obviously, you've done some prosthetics and some makeup and stuff like that in the past. How was the experience playing the master with the transformation, so to speak?
The look and everything is all Travis. It was all his decision, his making, it was very, very detailed. Took a lot of concentration.
When we knew the master was going to be female, and what she was going to be, sort of those conversations she was having with Anne were going to be different than like a male character, because often in a vampire film, the male vampire is like another suitor, and it's an either or conversation that's happening. You can either be with your husband or you can be with me, and we were taking that out of the equation because it was such a sort of a different type of vampire master. We felt we had the luxury to go back to a classic design, because the character themselves was so progressive. We could do a retro design, and that would be an interesting mix. And when that decision had happened, Barbara had mentioned Bonnie as an actress, and I think one thing that is immediately clear from all of Bonnie's work is that she can perform through the sort of layers that this makeup has, because her personality and her talent is so sort of bright and vibrant. And not every actor has that. Sometimes people can get lost in the makeup, and it's not much different than a sort of an animatronic. And Bonnie really brought life to that character. And our, you know, we're using vampires to be an allegory for rediscovering your lust for life. It was very important to have an actress who is bursting at the seams with life, and that is something that Bonnie.
That's so well said.
Thank
That's so
you.
true about Bonnie.
Thank you.
Yay! We love you, Bonnie.
I love you guys. Oh, I love you all, especially you.
Travis, give us the scoop on Jacob's wife too, right here, right now, for that #show.com.
Well, one of the fun things about the movie was, you know, it's this couple that recalibrate their relationship a little bit, and they haven't solved all of their problems by the end of the movie. So I do think we leave them in an interesting cliffhanger. And I'm curious what the next day, the next month, and the next year in their relationship looks like as Anne fully gets mastery over her new lifestyle, quote unquote. And Jacob does his best to navigate that. So yeah, there's plenty of room to go with these characters.
Larry, I feel like I've kind of left you behind a little bit. I haven't asked you enough questions. How did you feel about your character's arc? Because obviously you start the film off very straight-laced, very buttoned up, literally and figuratively. And then, you know, about the end of the second act into the third act there, you let loose and go pretty wild. Of course, it was at the expense of being hypnotized by a vampire, but how did you work on that character arc?
It's just very fun, and it's all on the page. You know, I love being the uptight guy. There's one of my favorite scenes is with the sheriff in the beginning, and I just cut Barbara off every time she offers a thought, and it was just very funny. We all knew it was absurd and you know, maybe typical in relationships, but it just struck me as particularly humorous in the way Travis staged it. So. But I was equally pleased when, you know, we're smoking pot, and not to spoiler alert, but, you know, when clearly they're falling back into maybe how they discovered each other. Although I think my guy was always uptight. But yeah, it's just fun. And there's a certain amount of comedy acting, and you have to keep control of it, or you're nudging at the audience, which isn't the agenda. The thing is to find the truth in scenes. And then I even have a scene, you know, when we have a fight and there's actual potentially tears, and I think that was a surprise to all of us, but I really felt betrayed as the character, and I wanted the man to express kind of this vulnerability that usually is reserved for the woman. And so I think over and over we were all working together to find ways to flip the genre expectations. I mean the gender expectations in the genre. So that was fun. And I also love the scene where we have we're carrying a corpse out, and this little girl called
That scene was so funny. Oh my gosh. Where did you get that little girl, by the way? Where'd you get that little actress?
She was amazing. I mean, she was the Shirley Temple of Mississippi. She was so precocious. And her parents were very sweet, and they came and watched this film. But that's one of the only scenes, Travis, that I would love the extended version, because that comedy just goes on and on in the you know, in the script and in what we filmed. Just this kind of, it's very Abbott and Costello from my youth, you know, where you're kind of like so
yeah. Well, one of the things that Travis talks about sometimes too is that the world changes after Anne is bitten. Everything opens up. And, you know, in the beginning of the movie, I'm sort of quiet and contained, and Larry's sort of buttoned up and very stiff. But then when this so-called tragedy happens, that she's bitten by a vampire, but she gains this lust for life, the whole world brightens up. It gets funnier and brighter and cooler and more absurd and bizarre and just more full, you know? So a lot of those scenes, Travis tailored to sort of, you know, showcase that, yeah, something different has happened in these characters' lives. Maybe for the better. Maybe it's not so bad being bitten by a vampire.
We're pro-vampire. This is a
Yeah.
pro-vampire movie.
What a blast. I had so much fun talking to those four. And again, a very special thank you goes out to Barbara, Bonnie, Larry, and Travis for taking the time to sit down and talk to me. And a very special apology goes out to Priscilla from KWPR. This video came out a couple days later than it was supposed to, and that's on me. I apologize for that, but it's out now, and this serves as a great reminder that JAKOB'S Wife is on digital streaming platforms on demand and in theaters right now. That's right, folks. We're going back to see movies in theaters. What a time to be alive! Once again, my name is Ben Cleaver. This is that#show.com. And the reason I'm drinking out of this red cup is because whenever Ben Cleaver shows up, it's always a party.